CBLT Channel 5 in Toronto, Cable 6, your Grey Cup station.
CBC Sports presents the 1973 Canadian College Bowl for the Vanier Cup as the St. Mary's Huskies meet the McGill Redmen at CNE Stadium in Toronto. This college championship game is brought to you by General Motors of Canada on behalf of Chevrolet, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, and Buick dealers from coast to coast, whose cars and trucks bear the GM mark of excellence. And by IAC, we put money in action. And the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and its affiliated stations from coast to coast.
Hi everyone. Well, after 2 days of beautiful late November weather where the mercury climbed into the mid-50s under sunny, clear skies, it's taken a decided turn today on Grey Cup Eve. And unfortunately for the College Bowl participants, McGill and St. Mary's, it's cold, it's wet, and it's windy. At least that does. I'm Don Whitman with Frank Rigney, and Frank, how is that going to affect the passing attack, particularly of these two teams?
Well, of course, I think the big effect would be on the St. Mary's Huskies because Bill Robinson, their outstanding quarterback, who has completed something like 55, 56% of his passes over the course of the year, really likes to put the ball in the air. They feel offensively that they want to throw at least 60% of the time, and it's got to have a definite effect on them because the ball's obviously going to be wet. The field conditions are a little tough. Even though we have the artificial turf, it's going to be a problem because the water is very heavy on the field, and I think if there's any advantage, it'll certainly be to the McGill Ball Club because of their great defense.
Well, Tom McKee and Bob Moyer scouted the two teams. First, here's Bob with a look at McGill.
University of McGill, undefeated runaway winners of the Quebec Conference, and the University of Manitoba Bisons, who needed a sudden death playoff win over Saskatchewan to reach the Western Bowl. As has been the story of Canadian football this year, a kicker plays a major role in the game's outcome. McGill's Ron Kelly kicks 3 field goals, the first early. Manitoba loses its quarterback, Bud Harden, in the second quarter, a broken leg. The man who replaces him, Rich Paholski, promptly runs into a fumble problem. McGill's Mike Lorian recovers, and quarterback Oldus Oders quickly moves his team into scoring position. The big play, 38 yards on a pass to number 75, Mike Goulet. 2 plays later, Oders spots his favorite receiver, Ross Brooks, who makes a great end zone catch. The game's only touchdown, McGill in front, 10-0. Kelly kicks his second field goal early in the third quarter, and Oders and Brooks combine for another big gainer. A final field goal, the third for Ron Kelly, for McGill's 8th straight win. McGill 16, Manitoba nothing in the Western Bowl.
Coach Bailey of McGill, this sudden cold snap is going to affect the ball game and your ball club, I would assume.
It has to be a factor in a game like this. The wind is very, very stiff, and the rain is coming down, and I think it'll affect the passing game, definitely.
What about your plan of attack for the ball game?
Well, right at the moment, we're going to have to see how things go. Our running game and our passing game are equally strong, and we plan to go with both to begin with, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
Who should the fans across Canada be watching for from your ball club, the outstanding players, you think?
Well, there are a number of excellent boys. I think that perhaps you could highlight 3 of them that made the All-Canadian team, and Don Dawson, who was an excellent tackle, number 68, our left tackle. He's a great blocker, a great team man, and just a wonderful guy. Another fellow on the offense I think that the fans should look at is Ross Brooks, who is number 27, our right flanker. He's not only a great receiver, which he's got most of his credit for this year, but he's an excellent blocker. On defense, I think we could probably look for Brian Quick, who's been a tremendous asset to our defense this year and helping us get the number of turnovers that we've had.
Okay, Coach Bailey, thank you very, very much, and good luck to you and your ball club in this game.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, now let's go to the man who knows all about the opposition, Tom McKee.
Battles were close on the road to the Atlantic Bowl. Laurier by 3 points over Western. St. Mary's, UPEI, and Acadia 10 points each. SMU eventually getting to the Atlantic Bowl. Tuffy Knight, head coach Sir Wilfrid Laurier, against Al Keith, leading his charges from SMU. Laurier were favored, but it was evident a Fred McLean touchdown and a 7-3 lead at the half wouldn't be enough for them. The Bears added some insurance strength with another major in the third quarter, but when Huskies quarterback Bill Robinson hit Steve Telfer, it was suddenly a 14-10 ball game. This field goal by Gary Mueller and a safety touch made it 17-12 Laurier. Then Laurier's fifth fumble of the game gave St. Mary's their chance. Robinson to Clark. It's good down to the 13-yard line. Robinson again to the air. And this time he hits Clark with less than 3 minutes to play. The point after was good. St. Mary's to the College Bowl 1917 over Laurier.
Coach Alkeith, you gave a lot of credit in that game to your defense.
We sure did. We had to defend the wishbone. Everybody in the country has been saying all year that Laurier's wishbone is undefendable. We had a couple of the whole defensive unit played extremely well, but we've got Fraser McDonald, made All-Canadian, who shut it off from the outside, and Doug Watson, one of our interior linebackers, who was all-conference in our league. He did a heck of a job making the tackles inside out.
Now, what about offense?
Well, we're not too pleased with the weather. The wind more so than the rain. I find the wind affects the passing game more than the rain, and Billy Robinson has been an exceptional passer for us for 4 years, but we might have to rely a little more on running this week with the weather the way it is, and Ange Santucci carries most of the load as far as our running is concerned.
What are you going to do about that offensive line? Still going to be spread across?
Yeah, I guess you guys picked that up at practice yesterday. Why not? We've won with it all year. We're not doing a darn thing different that we haven't done all year, except our defense is a little different than the thing we came up with against the wishbone, but we've gotten this far on our offense and our defense the way it looks on paper, so we're going to do everything just the way we did all year.
Let success carry itself through. Thank you very much, Al Keith, and may the better team win.
Thank you.
Now let's go back to Frank Rigney and Don Whitman.
Thank you, Tom. Well, it's a little drier up here in the broadcast booth, although with that rain blowing in, sometimes it's a little difficult to tell. Vanier Cup winners in previous years, in the first 2 years it was invitational, 65 and 66, include the University of Toronto and St. Francis Xavier. Then it became a competition between the Western Bowl champion and the Atlantic Bowl champion. In 67, the University of Alberta, followed by Queens in 68. Manitoba won it 2 years running under the direction of Bobby Kramer, 69 and 1970. And then in 1971, the University of Western Ontario reigned as collegiate champion. And last year, the University of Alberta Golden Bears were the collegiate champions. This year, it's a battle between either McGill or St. Mary's. And Frank, neither of these teams were really expected to be here.
Well, that's right, Don. As a matter of fact, we're just noticing in the college rankings for the end of the year prior to the playoffs, these ball clubs are ranked 7th and 8th in the collegiate ranks. So they are, I'm sure, both very happy to be here participating for the championship.
Well, a couple of definite upsets in the Western Bowl, that 16-0 triumph for McGill over the University of Manitoba, and of course in the Atlantic Bowl where the Huskies defeated Sir Wilfrid Laurier.
I think it's going to be very interesting to watch St. Mary's because they do split their offensive line, as you noticed their coach referring to maybe a possible change for today because of weather conditions, but it's going to be a very interesting ball game for them.
CBC Sports coverage of the Canadian College Bowl continues in a moment.
Over 1 million Canadians are going to buy a new car this year. Many of you are going to look at full-size cars because you need the room, comfort, and ride of a full-size car. Here's something to think about. More Canadians buy Chevrolet than any other car. There's a good reason for it. Chevrolet gives you more for your money. More room, more style, more models. And Chevrolet is famous for its high resale value. Our competitors are telling you to look over the new cars very carefully. That's the best advertising for Chevrolet that could be done. Because when you do compare Chevrolet, you're going to buy a Chevrolet. So I'd like to ask you to do exactly as our competitors are telling you to do. Compare all the full-size cars. That way Chevrolet is going to continue to be the largest selling car in Canada, just as it has been year after year after year.
Well, last night, Dave Pickett of the University of Saskatchewan was named winner of the Heck Crichton Trophy as the outstanding collegiate player for 1973. And some of the previous winners of this award include Mike Eben, who was with the University of Toronto back in 1967, and of course he now plays with the Toronto Argonauts. In 1968, Mike Raham of the University of Toronto was the Heck Crichton winner. In 69, it was Dave Fleischer of McGill. In 1970, Paul Patton of the University of Ottawa. Mel Smith from Alberta won it in 1971. And last year's Heck Crichton winner was Andy Paricci of the University of Windsor. And this year it is, of course, Dave Pickett, the fine passing quarterback from the University of Saskatchewan. And he is graduating this year and almost certain to earn a professional tryout next year in the Canadian Football League.
Don, I should mention the reason for the delay at this point. Some of the official dignitaries are having problems. They had a helicopter in which they were intended to arrive at the ballgame site here, but of course weather conditions are affecting a few other things at the moment, so I'm not sure if we're going to be underway on time at this point.
Well, Frank, earlier we alluded to the fact that the previous 2 days were beautiful, late November days with the temperature in the mid-50s, and I hope this is not the weather we're going to experience tomorrow on Grey Cup Day, when that telecast will, of course, be seen on the full CBC network. And I'm sure many of the 35,000 fans who were planning on attending are keeping their fingers crossed that it won't be bad either. The Teddy Morris Memorial Trophy goes to the outstanding player in the college game, and some of the previous winners include Jerry Sternberg in 1965 from the University of Toronto, Terry Gorman of St. Francis and Xavier in 66, Val Schneider of the University of Alberta, Don Bain of Queens, Bobby Kramer of Manitoba, Mike Shallow of Manitoba, Bob McGregor of Alberta, and Roger Camerton and Andy McLeod, co-winners last year. Now let's go down to field level and Bob Moyer.
Ladies and gentlemen, approaching in his car is His Excellency, the Right Honorable Roland C. Michener, the Governor General of Canada. And we might add, while the Governor General is driving up here, that he's a great sports fan. Unable to fly into Toronto, they drove in from Kingston to be here for the kickoff. Greeting His Excellency, the Governor General of Canada, is Mr. John Alexander, the President of the Canadian College Ball. The official party is now moving to center field, where His Excellency is being greeted by Keith Harris, the President of the CIAU, and Dr. Robert Briggs, the President of CanSave. The Governor General is out for the official kickoff, and a great kick. Now let's go upstairs to Don Whitman and Frank Rigney.
Right, Bob, and under very adverse conditions, a very impressive kickoff by the Governor General. I noticed that he kicked with the wind, taking the wind advantage, and I'm sure that is going to be a very prominent factor in the game this afternoon. Frank Rigney, one of these days we're going to get reasonable weather conditions to do a football telecast under. Last Sunday when we did that Western Final, a rather cool day with fog. The officials this afternoon, Fred Luscombe is the referee. Tip Logan is the line umpire. Bill Moulton is the back umpire. The head linesman is John Diffin, and the field judge is Ken Green. Wearing the red sweaters, the University of McGill Redmen, and the white with the purple trim, St. Mary's from Halifax. Ron Kelly will kick it off for McGill, and dropping back deep to receive are number 7, Romano, and number 28, Burgess. Kelly, number 70, who also handles the punting and kickoff chores, number 70, will kick off for the McGill Redmen, and the McGill Redmen will enjoy the advantage of that very strong wind for the first quarter of this Canadian College Final here at CNE Stadium.
Don, you're talking about weather conditions, and I think we're going to spend the rest of our broadcast live talking about it, the way things have been going for the last month or so. But with the sleet and snow coming in the broadcast booth, there's going to be a few people upset before the day's over.
Well, of course, it's very unfortunate because the collegiate champions trying to put their best efforts forward, particularly this year when the collegiate final is part of Grey Cup weekend. Tomorrow, of course, the Grey Cup game here at CNE, and for the first time ever, the collegiate championship is also being held the same weekend. The kickoff by Kelly, and the game is underway. Romano takes it back at the 10-yard line. And Romano is upended at the 32. So St. Mary's will scrimmage 1st and 10 from that point. Mike Nanny was in to make the tackle. That was a 58-yard kickoff and a 25-yard return. That defensive unit of McGill, Nanny, Margulies, Wiseman, and Thibault are the front four. Lorion, Delory, and Beauregard, the linebackers. Bonenberg, Quick, Gady, DeGraff, and Warner are the defensive halves. Quarterback Robinson moves up over the ball, 1st and 10 from the 32. Angelo Santucci has a gain of about 4, perhaps 5 on the first offensive play for St. Mary's. Lorion came over to make the tackle. It'll be 2nd and 5, St. Mary's.
Should be interesting, Don, to see what sort of adjustments St. Mary's make because of the weather conditions. Santucci, as you mentioned, has been their outstanding ball carrier all year long, but he's really the only fellow that has consistently run the football during the course of the regular season.
Clark comes out to the left, Kirkpatrick goes right, and it's Santucci again, and Santucci is up across the 40, very close to that forward marker. Lorian and Quick were both in on the tackle. Quick was named to the All-Canadian team at a dinner last evening. During the course of the telecast, we'll refer to other members of that All-Canadian team. 3 members of McGill were selected, along with 2 members of the St. Mary's Huskies. Referee Fred Luscombe calls for the yardsticks for the first measurement of the game. It's just a little short. But I think St. Mary's is going to gamble, and I think a wise decision, particularly in view of that strong wind.
Don, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think you're going to see a lot of that during the course of the ball game because retaining possession of that football is going to be very key with that wind.
On the first 2 plays, Santucci has been the ball carrier. Let's see who Robinson goes to. He keeps himself and appears to have it. Driving up to the 45-yard stripe. And it's 1st and 10 for St. Mary's.
Take a look at it, and a good call by Bill Robinson. He doesn't want to take any chances on handling that football any more than he has to. And that's also a play, maybe not too exciting, but I'm sure we're going to see it many times on short yardage today.
The ball just across the 44. Again, it's Clark and Kirkpatrick going to either side in that twin flanker formation. Santucci is going to get a lot of work this afternoon, it would appear, as he runs it to the 49, tackled by Delore, the middle linebacker.
Don, one of the things for the fans to watch as St. Mary's controls that ball offensively is the wide splits that their offensive linemen do have as they come up over the ball, and we talked about that briefly before the ball game, that they feel by isolating those defenders that they can more effectively run, and of course that has not been their strong suit. It's going to have to be today, obviously.
Second and 6, and Santucci gets the call again. This time he stopped short of that first down. He has a gain of about 4. He was striving for the midfield stripe. And he's about 1.5 yards to 2 yards shy, but it would appear that St. Mary's is going to attempt to retain possession and will gamble on third down. They were successful on their first attempt, and see what play young quarterback Bill Robinson goes with here. Al Keith, the head coach of St. Mary's, talking to his defensive unit if they are forced to move onto the field if this third down gamble is unsuccessful. For the first time, Matkowski carries, and it could be close. Delore came in to make the tackle. Placement of the ball will be critical here. It's just a little shy of that midfield stripe, and it's going to require a measurement.
It's going to be very close, and a fine defensive play by the Redmen. Of course, that's their strong point. The McGill defense is obviously the thing that's got to carry them in this ballgame today, or at least that's their coaching staff's thought.
Al Matkowski managed to pick up just enough, and early in the game, Al Keith has gambled twice, and Charlie Bailey's defensive unit has not been able to stop them and take that ball away. And of course, this is very important in this first quarter of the game for St. Mary's. If they're going against that strong wind, they want to use up as much time as possible. Matkowski is stopped by Beauregard, who came over from his right corner linebacking position.
Certainly seem obvious that this would be the first time in the ballgame St. Mary's almost has to go to the air now. It's a loss of 1 yard, so it's 2nd and 11. There's 11:33 remaining in the first quarter.
No score in the ballgame in this Canadian Collegiate Final here at CNE Stadium. St. Mary's with the football facing a 2nd and 12 situation. First pass of the afternoon. Robinson swings it out to Telfer. Telfer is caught right at the midfield stripe, a gain of a couple. Nanny came over to make the stop. As Frank pointed out earlier, a very strong defensive record for McGill over the regular season, and it's in evidence so far in this game.
Fine play by Nanny here, too, who's a defensive end, and had it not been for him, that screen pass was set up extremely well and might have resulted in another first down for St. Mary's, but an obvious passing situation at this point, 3rd and 9. And don't forget, for fans that are used to watching CFL football, there is blocking allowed in collegiate ranks on punt returns.
Ken Clark, the possessor of a 38.1-yard average over regular season play, gets away an excellent kick into that wind. It's fumbled back there by Brooks. Penalty flags go down, and I believe it was recovered by Gady.
Taken by Brooks. Fumble recovered.
That was a 32-yard kick. No opportunity for a return, of course, because of the fumble.
I don't know what the penalty is going to be called. I think just an offside lateral done, just spotting the ball where it was first touched. But also in the punting rule, they do have to give 5 yards in covering that punt.
CBC Sports action continues in a moment. The score is St. Mary's 0 and McGill 0.
The Acmo Manufacturing Company made a good product and people knew it. The orders rolled in from all over Canada. But as business got bigger, so did the problems, because so much of Acmo's manufacturing equipment was out of date.
I can't keep up with the orders. We need a whole new facelift,
said Acmo's president one day, slightly out of breath.
But I need money helped.
Well, he was talking to the right man, an IAC man. He found out how IAC could help plan and finance a whole new modernization program for Acmo. Together, they worked it out. Soon, Acmo had the most modern equipment available. And even though Acmo now has more business than ever, filling those orders is no problem anymore. Moral, if you're a little behind, IAC can lend a hand to get you ahead. IAC is behind more companies than you know. In fact, we're the largest leasing and financing company in Canada. IAC, we put money in action.
Now, those are obviously St. Mary's supporters on the far side of the stadium here at CNE, and public address announcer Ken Foss informed those spectators in the open stands that if they so desired and would move in an orderly fashion, they were welcome to come over to the covered section on the opposite side. They turned thumbs down on that offer. They're going to stick it out in the rain right behind that St. Mary's bench to provide vocal support. Most of the spectators here at C&E are in the covered section of the stadium, including the rabid McGill fans. Lapkovsky, the ball carrier, for a gain of approximately 8. It will be 2nd and 2. The ball is just inside the 32. Offensively, Otters is the quarterback. Cowie and Lapkovsky, Brooks and Dunn complete the backfield. Kelly and Goulet are the ends. Dawson and Quinn are the tackles. Madden and Masco the guards, and Spungen is the center. Cowie, trying to come around that right side, slipped and was stopped by Roy Romano.
We mentioned there was an awful lot of water on the field prior to the game, and they attempted to get as much off it as possible. You can see right here the footing is going to be treacherous throughout the day.
Cowie, in attempting to make that turn, had his feet slipped right out from under him, and Romano was able to pin him for the stop, but not before he had the first down at the 34. Cowie again, and he's stopped over on the left side by Burgess from his defensive half spot. A gain of about 3, make it 2nd and 7. Eight minutes and 39 seconds remain in the first quarter. There's no score between McGill with the football and St. Mary's. Lapkovsky has a good haul and a first down at the 45. Pelham came in to make the tackle for St. Mary's, and he is the injured ball player.
Well, as we've seen in the first series of plays by McGill, they're trying to run outside because the inside of the defensive line for St. Mary's is quite a big bunch of people. Mike Riley, 6'3", 280 pounds, and Dave White, 5'10", 255, but they're not that mobile, so I think that McGill will consistently try to go outside during this ball game as long as that footing doesn't affect them too badly.
From the 45, it's 1st and 10 McGill. Otters has not yet taken to the air with that wind advantage. Cowie, the ball carrier, finds some room and has almost a 10-yard gain near the midfield stripe. Stopped by Allison with help from Wasson. Cowie, number 32. He was the leading rusher on the club this year, averaging 5.3 yards per carry, and he led the team with 9 touchdowns.
Rick Flynn, number 61, the right offensive tackle, does a fine job here for McGill.
Measurement reveals that it's just short of the first down. It will be 2nd and less than a yard. Howie, good haul again, and no doubt about the first down as he's inside the 50. Pelham came over to make the stop with help from Penzito. In the press box with us is Bob Clark, the standby referee, and as we look at Cowie on this replay with that good hole, picking up the first down, Bob, perhaps a couple of the basic rule changes you could explain for us.
Well, basically this year there hasn't been any real rule changes to affect the game that much, really.
Lapkovsky, good hole, and he's brought down finally down at the 30. He almost broke that one all the way. Burgess came over to make the tackle. However, a penalty flag is down.
Sorry, Don. Great job by Matt, number 50, the right offensive guard for McGill. I didn't pick up the penalty, Don.
Now they're going to bring it back. It would appear as though the infraction is definitely against McGill. Referee Fred Luscombe is marching it off against the Redmen, moving the ball back to the 54. Clipping is the infraction illustrated against McGill. First down, of course, was attained before the infraction took place, so the ball comes back to the 54. It's 1st and 10 from that point. 6 minutes and 56 seconds remaining in the first quarter. There's no score in the ball game, and McGill has marched steadily downfield and had a big gainer wiped out by that Clipping infraction. Cowie has a gain of 5 as he's inside the 50. Burgess had help from Larry Bridges in making the tackle. St. Mary's, champions of the Blue Nose Conference. Victory over Wilfrid Laurier, and Bridges, the injured player, receiving help from trainer Dave McCormick.
Don, as you said, McGill is certainly moving the ball effectively on the ground. They have yet to put it in the air in this first quarter, but you know, to put an offensive drive together starting in your own end of the field at the 20-25-yard line where McGill did start and march all the way down the field without any mistakes is something that's very difficult to do under the best of circumstances, and weather conditions here are going to be a factor. These ball clubs have been successful not having a turnover so far, but I think that eventually they're going to have to throw that football, and what better time than while they've got this wind advantage.
Bridges now getting up, but he'll have to go out for at least one play, and Peter Miller has taken his spot at that defensive left end position. Statistician Ron Andrews points out that Cowie has carried 4 times for 21 yards and Babkowski has 3 carries for 27 yards. Second and 5, McGill. The ball just inside the 50 of St. Mary's. Pitch to Cowie. Cowie trying to get outside. An excellent defensive play by Pelham. Harry Bridges, the injured defensive end of St. Mary's, who is on the bench. He's a sophomore in arts. He's a native of Toronto. And St. Mary's is hoping, of course, that he'll be able to get back into this ball game. However, at the moment it appears as though the defensive unit is going to get a rest as McGill will be kicking. Santucci and Burgess are back to receive Ron Kelly's punt. He had a 34.9-yard average this year. An end-over-end boot is taken by Burgess. Oh, Burgess is dumped right at the 24. 39-yard kick, and Dawson was there to make the tackle.
It'd be interesting if we can pick it up with our cameras for the people that are not familiar watching punt returns with blocking to watch which side that defense, the receiving team, sets up that wall. That time St. Mary's tried to set it up on their right side, but of course weren't that successful.
The wide splits of that St. Mary's offensive line as Robinson moves over the ball. 1st and 10 from the 24. Santucci straight ahead for an advance of about 3, tackled by Wiseman and Tebow. Santucci, number 22. His uncle Pat played with Hamilton. Bill Robinson, the quarterback, number 11, had quite a year, completing better than 55% of his passes for 19 touchdowns. However, against that wind in the first quarter, he's only thrown once. That was stopped for no gain. Draw play. Santucci picks up a little, but not enough for the first down. And St. Mary's will be forced to kick once again. Mike Nanny in to make the tackle with 4 minutes and 7 seconds remaining in the first quarter. It's a scoreless game.
If you take a look at it, I don't know really at this point in the ballgame why Bill Robinson would be calling a draw play, because the passing game certainly hasn't been that much of a threat, and as you can see, it was not successful for a first down for St. Mary's. That'll be 3rd and 6 to go with 4 minutes remaining in the first quarter.
Buzz number 53, limping slightly as he heads to that St. Mary's bench, and St. Mary's has had some problems with injuries in the first quarter of this game. I think that's about the 3rd player to go off limping. Kick by Gady, and he's brought down right at the midfield stripe. However, there is a penalty flag. Mike Curry was there to make the tackle. A 25-yard punt, no return. Of course, although there is blocking in collegiate football, there is, of course, the 5-yard restraining area that must be observed, and the penalty is against St. Mary's. There's a timeout. CBC Sports action continues in a moment. The score is St. Mary's nothing and McGill nothing.
Handsome, isn't it? The 74 Chevrolet Impala. But at Chevrolet, we put our new cars through a lot before we build the ones you find at your Chevy dealers.
Drivers Lee and Martin.
We run them through water and salt and mud, up hills, into potholes, and over rugged Belgian blocks.
Overrun to 60 miles per hour prior to brakes on pad.
40 miles per hour. Accelerate to 30 miles per hour. Terminate at 1,600 foot mark.
The road to stay in Canada's most popular car is a rough one, but we think it's worth it. See your Chevrolet dealer and see why we call Chevrolet the great Canadian value. 74. It's your year for a Chevrolet.
That penalty for no yards on the punt gives McGill excellent field position. And Al Keith's defensive unit will be tested. Keith and his coaching staff of Gordon McLeod, Doug Wright, Dave Murphy, and Art Bayless. Good fake. Otter's looking, throwing, and it's intercepted. Picked off by Fraser McDonald, and he rolls out of bounds at the 30-yard line. McDonald last night named to the All-Canadian team, perhaps rather obviously with that interception.
That was a great call, actually, Don. McGill quarterback, but his primary receiver was covered deep. He overthrew that ball somewhat, and Fraser McDonald, a 6'3", 215-pound linebacker, is the fellow that got that interception. The scouting report from the pros on him says he has good height, range, and speed, and plays his position very well. Probably will need an extra 10 or 15 pounds, though, to make it in the pros.
Well, St. Mary's takes over 1st and 10 at their own 27. Santucci trying to get outside. He's across the 32 to 33. That'll be a gain of 5. It will be 2nd and 5 with 2 minutes and 48 seconds remaining in the first quarter. It's still a scoreless ball game, and there's somewhat adverse conditions here at the CNE. Temperature is 40 degrees, however the wind is blowing very strongly from the east, and it's been raining since about an hour before the ball game.
I think that is at least somewhat adverse conditions.
Park in motion on 2nd down. Robinson throwing over the head of the intended receiver. Matkowski was the target of quarterback Robinson, but it's incomplete. It will be 3rd and 5. Of course, a number of outstanding ball players from collegiate ranks have gone on to professional careers. Look at people with the 2 Grey Cup participants, for example. Jim Foley from the University of Prince Edward Island, Jerry Organ from the University of Guelph, Mike Law from Queens. Then with the Edmonton Eskimos, they've got even more. The ball bounces out of bounds. It's fielded by Brooks. They've got Bob Clark from the University of Alberta, McGregor from Alberta, John Farlinger from the University of Calgary, Molstad from the University of Alberta, Gary Adam from the University of Alberta, Bob House from Queens, Mike Lambrose is from Queens, Dane Norrie, Dave Neckel from Waterloo Lutheran, and Jim Henshaw from the University of Western Ontario. Waterloo Lutheran, of course, is now known as Sir Wilfrid Laurier University. So the professionals are vitally interested in collegiate football, and many of them are here today watching this collegiate championship with an eye to future prospects. Golly straight ahead to the 47. Gain of 4. It will be 2nd and 6. Larry Bridges back in the ball game after being shaken up earlier. He's number 56, making the tackle. Some of the St. Mary's fans, people who have journeyed from Halifax for this championship game with 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining in the first quarter. The rain continues to fall at CNE. Mixed with that rain, a few snow flurries as well. Cowie looking for the first down, and he will be very close in the neighborhood of the 53. Allison from his middle linebacking position came in to make the tackle.
That's McDonald, 77 there is the all-star defensive end for the St. Mary's Huskies, who makes a stop on that play. And Don, I'm still surprised that McGill has not put the ball in the air at least somewhat, other than, of course, that one unsuccessful interception throw by Otter in the first quarter, because they're going to lose that win advantage very sharply here.
Well, Charlie Bailey may be pondering that particular situation right now, but he is hoping that this kick of Kelly's will be able to drive St. Mary's back as they change ends to prepare to start the second quarter. Burgess will take it at the 20. Looking for some blocking help. He gets up to the 27. Zoran Madden was over to make the tackle with 27 seconds remaining in the first quarter. A 37-yard punt, 7 yards the length of the return. No score in the football game. You have some idea of the velocity of the wind here at CNE.
If there's any question in your mind about why the receiver took off to his right like that, we can hopefully pick up the wall that St. Mary's attempted to set up on that side of the field and almost resulted in an excellent punt return.
Back to the live action. Matkowski finds some room, breaks a couple of tackles, and then gets up to about the 38. Fred DeGraaf came over to make the stop. Number 33, Matkowski.
Very interesting play, Don, because that quick pitch that St. Mary's has run on a couple of occasions here in the latter part of the first quarter is set up by their offensive backs being split so wide. They really don't go in motion to receive that pitch out. They're already out there.
This will probably be the final play of the quarter. Curry, the center, Fumerton and Terrio are the guards. Potier and Yakimchuk the tackles. Telfer and Hotchkiss are the ends. Santucci straight ahead across the 40 in the vicinity of the 42. Brought down by Lorion as the gun sounds, and at the end of the first quarter, the score is St. Mary's nothing and McGill nothing. We'll be back with the second quarter in just a moment.
This year, we're introducing the new Panasonic Quatricolor TVs backwards, because Panasonic engineers have made our sets far less complicated than ever before. And in electronics, simpler is better. That's why the Quatricolor chassis has only 5 modular circuit boards to make servicing quick and easy. And it's all reliable solid state. The only tube is the picture tube. Up front, we've uncomplicated tuning with Q-Lock. One button electronically controls color, tint, contrast, and brightness. And there's our Panamatrix picture tube for a sharp picture with bright colors. Panasonic Quatricolor. The same uncomplicated engineering in every set, from 18-inch portables to our new 26-inch consoles. After all we've put into them, you owe it to yourself to go see the picture that comes out of them. Panasonic, just slightly ahead of our time.
As that precipitation crashes down on the CNE, you get an opportunity to see what these athletes are competing under. The conditions as the water lays on the artificial turf, and thank goodness for artificial turf, because imagine what the conditions would be like had they been playing on the regular surface that used to be here at the CNE. Matkowski picks up a couple of yards. He's stopped short of that first down, however, by Brian Quick. Matkowski is a sophomore in arts. This year he had a 3.7 rushing average. Most of the running for St. Mary's was handled by Angelo Santucci. The punting situation, Ken Clark drops back. No score in the ball game. Seconds into this second quarter. Ball bounces to Brooks, having a little difficulty with his footing, and there's a difference in the collegiate rules as compared to the CFL regulations. The moment he touches that turf, whether of his own volition or whether tackled, the ball is whistled dead.
Of course, that rule, Don, is exactly the same as it is in U.S. college football, and it's in the rule book primarily, of course, to stop any injury situations. There wouldn't be any piling on situations in a case like that. But Don, you have to know that eventually some kind of turnovers or breaks are going to crop up in this ball game. I think these fellows are doing an outstanding job of handling the football so far.
That was a 46-yard kick, and no opportunity for a run back. And Lapkovsky, the ball carrier, is across the 25 into the 28. Doug Lawson, the middle linebacker, made the tackle. Charlie Bailey, the head coach of McGill, in his second year. He was 3 years as an assistant coach. Two of the big fellows in that defensive line, 62 and 67, White and Riley. Second and 5, and it's Lapkovsky again. He should have that first down. Lawson, the middle linebacker, made the tackle with some assistance. Offensively, neither team has been able to mount much of an attack thus far. It's been pretty much a ground game. 49 yards of the 51 yards total offense rushing for St. Mary's, and all 59 yards rushing for McGill. First down from the 33. Lapkovsky picks up perhaps 4. Cipollini came in to make the tackle. Lapkovsky, number 25, 20-year-old commerce student at McGill. McGill undefeated during the regular season. They really didn't have much opposition in the Quebec Conference. Lapkovsky again in the vicinity of the 40-yard stripe. Mike Riley, the big fella, 280 pounds, came over to make the tackle. Riley, number 67, he's just 18 years of age, and I'm sure with that size, some of the professional scouts will be keeping an anxious eye on him this afternoon. Our spotter, Art Darch, is having a difficult time watching the field in an attempt to keep his charts covered from the rain that is blowing into our press box. I have to give those young ladies a lot of credit for venturing out in a day such as this to provide vocal support for their respective teams. Kelly is having difficulty. He's not going to get the kick away, and he's going to be brought down in the vicinity of the line of scrimmage, and St. Mary's will take over. And Frank, as you referred to earlier, turnovers could be important, although that was not a fumble or a pass interception, as turnovers are usually thought of. It is a very important one at this stage. CBC Sports Action continues in a moment. The score is St. Mary's nothing and McGill nothing. Did you see who hit that?
Monte Carlo by Chevrolet. Certainly its elegant styling has much to do with its success. But there's a reason for Monte Carlo's popularity that has to do with elegance of another kind. We think Leonardo da Vinci would have appreciated the radial tuned suspension that lets you enjoy the advantages of Monte Carlo's radial ply tires. We think you'll appreciate how smoothly it rides, how well it handles. Because the Monte Carlo is designed to be as elegant mechanically as it is in appearance. The 1974 Monte Carlo. To know its real beauty is to drive it. 74 is your year for a Chevrolet.
Well, that break for St. Mary's gives them the best field position they've enjoyed inside the 39. Kelly unable to launch that kick, having difficulty handling the snap, and now Robinson moves up over the ball, 1st and 10 at the 39. Robinson is going to keep trying to get outside, and he's bounced out of bounds at the 37. Vandenberg came over to force him up.
That's an unusual play, Don, because Bill Robinson doesn't often run with the football. In fact, the pro scouting report said that's probably his only weak point. He possesses one of the best natural throwing talents in the country. He understands his passing game extremely well, but he's not been known as a running quarterback throughout his collegiate career. He has, however, averaged something like 3 touchdown passes a ball game during his 4-year career.
2nd and 8 for St. Mary's. Good defensive play as DeGraff came over to knock it away from Santucci.
DeGraff, number 20, is probably the best defensive back considered by many for McGill. He's also the 2nd fastest fellow on the team. At least that's what I've been informed by our spotter, Art Darch. I will not necessarily tell you how dependable that information is at this point.
As some of his charts are being obliterated and beginning to look more like minestrone as he refers to them, it's going to be difficult to tell. Excellent kick by Clark, sailing in and through the end zone for a single point in the first scoring play of the ball game, with 10:04 remaining in the quarter, puts St. Mary's in front.
Sure glad that happened, Don. Now we know we have a highlight for the halftime show at this point.
A 62-yard kick. And St. Mary's leads in this Canadian College Bowl by a score of 1-0. Right now, let's go down to field level and a very wet Bob Moyer.
Don, I don't know about you and Frank Noah, but here in Eastern Canada throughout the season, Brent Haywood, our production assistant, and myself have been in some bad positions. But let me tell you, the weather conditions here today are the worst we have ever seen.
I sure like your uniforms.
Isn't it beautiful?
It's unfortunate we couldn't have got young Bob out to Edmonton last week. See how it really is.
Well, gloves are the order of the day as you wait at the bench, and that's the flanker Ken Clark, who accounted for the single for St. Mary's, and of course he's wearing that protective coat as well. However, I don't think it really does much good down at field level. 2nd and 9 for McGill. The ball is at the 26. Couple of fakes and big defensive play by Dave White.
I think Mike Riley got a pretty good shot at him too here, Don. He's the fellow we've been talking about, 6'3", 280 pounds. I think he said he was 18 years old.
Well, that's not Lake Ontario. That's the water lying on the CNE turf. However, there's not much difference in the depth. Kelly was unable to get his last kick away. This one, a low spiral kick that actually struck one of the St. Mary linemen in the back of his foot as he was attempting to retreat to form some blocking protection. And it was immediately whistled dead at that point. That's at the 35-yard line. An 11-yard kick by Ron Kelly.
You can see St. Mary's receiving team going up, trying to set up a wall on their left side, returning the ball, and the ball strikes one of the offensive linemen, or defensive linemen, I should say. Don, was that Terrio, number 53, I believe it was.
It appeared to be, and now St. Mary's takes over. And again, they're deep in McGill territory. Robinson throwing deep, intended for Kirkpatrick, incomplete. Kirkpatrick had moved downfield in behind Vandenberg. However, the pass was overthrown by quarterback Robinson.
Very tough kind of pattern for Kirkpatrick, number 8, as you see him on your screen, coming back to the huddle there to run. It was just a break out to the sideline and turn up the field, but he had a hard time to make much of a cut on this field. As you can see, the weather conditions we shall continue to talk about because they do predominate this football game with 8 minutes remaining in the first half, and St. Mary's leading this ball game 1-0.
It's 2nd and 10 from the 35. Santucci off tackle inside the 30. Margulies was there to make the tackle. He had a little help from the other defensive tackle, Wiseman. And for the first time for many of these collegiate players, they are wearing the special football shoes that are required for artificial turf. I don't think they have to worry about picking up too many blisters from slipping onto today, Frank, because that water should provide some form of insulation.
I don't think they're really going to gain that much experience about artificial turf today, really.
The field goal attempt by Clark, it's good. That kick came from the 37-yard line on the toe of Ken Clark, as accounted now for 4 points for St. Mary's as they move in front 4-0 over McGill in this College Bowl final at CNE Stadium.
Don, if I can add another pro scouting report on Ken Clark, he's 6'2", 185-pounder. He's the outstanding receiver in the conference. They feel he has a very smooth, disciplined patterns and great hands. He's an outstanding kicker as well, both punting and place kicking, as we just saw. Could probably punt for anybody in the Canadian Football League at this point, except maybe the Toronto Argonauts.
7:07 is the time remaining. 1st and 10 McGill. Otter's the quarterback. Intended for Goulet. That's only the second pass of the game for Otters. Goulet, third-year engineering student, and over the course of intercollegiate play in the Quebec Conference, he was the recipient of 6 passes. Of course, accurate passing with that strong wind is going to be a problem for both Otters and Robinson this afternoon. Straight ahead to Colley, and Colley is stopped after an advance of about 4. Arresting his progress, White and Allison, and it will be 3rd down, and again McGill will be forced to kick into that wind. So while McGill was unable to take advantage of the wind during the first quarter, St. Mary's certainly has in the second, and continuing to pelt down on CNE Stadium. Precipitation has certainly been absent over the past few days, but the weatherman is making up for it today. Again, a short kick, and it's whistled down immediately. It was fielded there by Pelham.
Well, it was partially blocked on. I don't know if Art picked it up, but who got a hand on it. Look at it again and see if we can figure out who it was.
Because of the field conditions.
I believe it was Buzz Terrio, number 53, Don, who got a hand on that ball. The same fellow who was hit by a punt on the previous.
Well, that was only a 12-yard kick by Kelly. His last was 11 yards, and of course he certainly is not going to have a good punting average today after those 2 efforts. Marinero into that offensive backfield. DeLaurie came in to make the tackle. Well, the Huskies have their supporters here at CNE. And at the moment, they're enjoying a 4-0 advantage with 5:08 remaining in the second quarter. Marineri again. Down to the 30. McGrath made the tackle.
McGrath and Fritz made the tackle. It is
Marineri has come up with 2 offensive plays for St. Mary's now that have moved the ball the most successful. Either ball club has been able to move the other end of the field, Donnie, and maybe we're going to get a major score here.
Well, Governor General Roland Michener, I hope, enjoying this game from the covered section of the CNE Stadium. Robinson throwing, and it's incomplete. It was almost picked off by number 23, Warner. It was intended for Clark.
Just a great fake by Bill Robinson before attempting to throw this pass, and a good defensive play down, as you say, by Warner, number 23 of McGill.
On second down, Robinson looking again. Going deep into the end zone, all alone over the head of the intended receiver, Marineri. And it seemed, Frank, as though the wind just took that ball. Marineri, I'm sure, felt as though he was standing there for ages waiting for that throw as he was wide open.
No question about it, Donnie. He looked like a center fielder that got the sun in his eyes or something, because he did stand there for a few seconds and the ball flew 5 yards over his head, and I'm sure the wind had a tremendous effect on it, as it has had, obviously, during this whole ball game.
So it goes as a long incompletion.
There's another shot at Robinson rolling out to get away from the rush and finally getting rid of the football, but no score for St. Mary's. Another field goal attempt.
Clark will hit this one from the 38. Kick is up, and it is good. So with 3 minutes and 50 seconds remaining till halftime, it's a 7-0 game. And at halftime, Bob Moyer and Tom McKee will be along to bring you some of the highlights of College Bowl activity in Toronto during the past few days, including the College Bowl dinner last evening, the presentation of the Heck Crichton Award. CBC Sports action continues in a moment. The score is St. Mary's 7 and McGill 0.
I thought we were getting an economy car and you come home with a sports car.
Oh, no, an economy car, honey. A Chevy Vega. Chevy Vega GT.
You must be kidding, Harry.
Guess what we paid for it?
74 Vega GT. This year's version of last year's Motor Trend Economy Car of the Year.
And a backseat.
74 Vega GT. The fun little car from Chevrolet.
Well, the McGill Redmen have certainly had their difficulties operating against this wind and rain in this second quarter. Again, they scrimmage from their own 35. 1st and 10. Otter's the quarterback. Cowie and Lapkowski in the backfield with him, along with Brooks and Dunn. Cowie is upended at the 40. A pickup of 5. It will be 2nd and 5. Allison pulled the feet out from under the McGill ball carrier. Cowie, number 32, led that Quebec conference in scoring with 9 touchdowns. He's a 20-year-old management student at McGill. Quick pitch to Cowie, and Cowie gets across the line of scrimmage and not much more. Allison again came in to make the tackle. 2 minutes and 35 seconds remaining.
It's a good shot at Brooks, making an excellent block, number 27 for McGill. they still haven't been able to put it together to get any sort of drive, and their punting game has really hurt them badly in this second period.
Statistician Ron Andrews points out that they've been averaging 22 yards per punt.
I guess that's not that bad, Don, with 11 and a 12 tacked on it the last two attempts.
So on third down, Kelly kicking again. This one is a better boot. Burgess looking for some blocking help, trying to get outside. He's got a hole now, and he's into the 52. Brian Ruddy came over to make the stop. That was a 23-yard kick and a 6-yard return. And Tom McKee, how are weather conditions over on that St. Mary's bench?
I want you to pass along a message to Bob.
Well, Tom, obviously that message will have to be relayed at a later date because the wind and rain are interfering with the signal we're trying to receive from you. Robinson, first down, throwing deep. Kirkpatrick has got it down at the 17-yard line. No. Yes, at the 17, it's complete. Kirkpatrick.
Good throw by Bill Robinson here because Bonenberg, number 21 of McGill, actually did a good job defensively against Kirkpatrick, but Robinson puts the ball right in there, and really the first successful, Don, is that the first completed pass? No, I think there's been one or two very short ones, but certainly the first one over 10 yards in this ball game.
Well, St. Mary's attempting to utilize the favoring wind advantageously here in this second quarter. Again, Robinson under pressure, and he's brought down for a loss back to the 27. The man who had him was Mike Nanny, 59, the left defensive end.
Good fake once again by Robinson. He's a very impressive fellow handling that football as well as throwing it, Don. It's a good thing McGill did have that rush because Hodges, number 12, was wide open in the end zone for St. Mary's.
It's now 2nd and 19 for St. Mary's. Point of attack is the 25. Almost seemed as though he had a little difficulty in the exchange, and then he ran into more problems as Beauregard came shooting in from that right linebacking position. I think it may have been that rush by Beauregard that jostled the ball away just as he was throwing it.
He had little problems on the exchange from center as well, Don, but I think it's certainly understandable the conditions we have here. But that Beauregard fellow, he wouldn't be from Mississippi, would he?
I don't think so, Frank.
Mississippi, Quebec.
Mississippi, Quebec. I know you like those southern names. You find them a lot easier to pronounce.
I do that. I'm going to do the same as last week, Don. I'm going to start talking southern here a little bit, just to get a little bit warmer. Once again, every time we do a game, Don, you know you feel that the conditions could never be any worse.
Well, the field goal attempt by Clark is wide. It's going to roll through the end zone for a single point. And it's now an 8-0 game in favor of St. Mary's over McGill. And again, Ken Clark, man responsible for the 8 points that St. Mary's has on the board. A couple of field goals and a couple of singles. Our cameramen also deserve a lot of credit for the work they do and struggling through against some very severe conditions. I don't know which is worse, the wet or the cold. .103 is the time remaining in the first half. McGill 1st and 10 from the 25 this time, following a single by Clark. Lepkowski across the line of scrimmage and picks up about 1. With now 45 seconds remaining.
We talk so much about the receivers, down in the offensive backs and their footing problems, but if you saw their Madden number 50, the offensive guard pulling out, trying to lead that play, overran his block, so it's creating problems for everybody out there.
St. Mary's, of course, would like to hold McGill on this sequence and get that ball back for perhaps a final scoring attempt with the win before the half ends. trying to get outside. Burgess in pursuit, and he brings him down with a fine diving tackle. However, that's a first down for McGill. And now 15 seconds remain, and this could be the final play upcoming of the first half.
It looked like he could almost break that play, but he did manage to get outside. Cowie doesn't have outstanding speed, but he has been a good runner for McGill throughout the course of the year, and I believe right now he's safe at second. Good slide.
Matkowski into the middle and upended in that big pileup at the 42. Mike Riley and Dave White, those two big defensive tackles, both had a hand in that stop, along with Tony Cipollino, number 61. St. Mary's has a big front four in Bridges, White, Riley, and Cipollini. They use a 4-4-4 defense. They really don't vary much.
During the course of the year, Don, they have been a blitzing ball club. They like to come and put a lot of pressure on the passer, but today I don't think they have to.
Well, I think time will run out with this carry by Cowie to the 45, and I'm sure the players are quite relieved to get over to the dressing room and some of the warmth that is afforded them underneath the stands here at CNE. All the scoring in the first half as a result of the kicking prowess of Ken Clark, a pair of field goals and a pair of singles as St. Mary's leads McGill by a score of 8-0. Our halftime features include the College Bowl dinner and the presentation of the Heck Crichton Award to the country's outstanding college football player, plus the 1973 presentation of the Media Award. Frank Rigney will also be along with highlights and statistics of the first half, and Bob Moyer will be down at field level talking with Keith Harris, the president of the CIAU. The score is St. Mary's 8, McGill nothing, and the halftime show continues in a moment.
Feel like the city's getting to you? You need some country air? Jump into a Nova. A Nova will take you there.
You gotta go where you wanna go, gotta do what you wanna do.
Introducing the 1974 Chevrolet Nova, the Freedom Machine. We call it that because of Nova's proven dependability, low maintenance costs, and because of Nova's versatility. Chevrolet Nova for 1974. 74. It's your year for a Chevrolet.
History will record that it appeared late in the year 1973. It came leading the people out of the land of the ordinary car. It came with the eye of an eagle, the heart of a lion, the face of a Laguna. And all who came with it were surrounded by things pleasing to the eye, the ear, the touch. The 74 Chevelle Laguna Type S3 by Chevrolet. 74. It's your year for a Chevrolet.
The highlight of each year's College Bowl festivities is the City of Toronto dinner to honor the participants and present college football's annual awards. College Bowl President John Alexander presents a check to CanSave.
And the profits from last year's game represent $14,173, and I'd like to present this check to Dr. Briggs at this time.
This is indeed a pleasure for me, on behalf of the Canadian Save the Children Fund, to accept this check from College Bowl. If I may just digress a minute on perhaps a note of levity. I'm on the staff of Queen's University, and I'm a little concerned that there's a certain team missing tonight. I wish my team well, and I hope they'll perhaps be here next year. I do have my partiality, though. I'm a graduate of McGill. I'd spent 6 years at McGill and didn't see a championship. I'm hoping, again seriously, but it might be on a note of levity, if I can hark back to something that Nixon said, and his validity perhaps is a little lacking these days, but he mentioned that 7% of the world's population is consuming 70% of the world's energy at the moment. And I think this gives us some guide as to the privileged position that we in North America are in. I'd like to let everyone know that there are many children around the world who are not in this privileged position. They're on existing on a sort of extended time out from the game of living. And money like this from the College Bowl gives them a chance to get back into the game of life and perhaps have a chance. Thank you very much.
CIAU Executive Director Bob Pugh presents the Media Award.
To introduce to you this evening a gentleman who will be the 1973 recipient of the CIAU Media Award. And it is with great appreciation that the CIAU enjoys the excellence of Mr. Jim Vipon, Executive Director of Redmen.
This is not going to be any long acceptance speech. Two football teams sitting here have got a very important game tomorrow. They got more important things to do than listen to an old sports writer, sports editor talk. I just want to say thank you very much. I came here with trepidation today because I discovered that apparently we broke a story this morning that wasn't supposed to be broken until after that luncheon at noon today. Although we're in the news business and we had a chance to get the College Bowl into the headlines and we grab us, we make no excuses for it. We're glad to help you because we think the College Bowl is a very important part of Canadian sport. I think someday soon you're going to be on your own away from the Grey Cup. And I hope that I'm still a sports editor of a newspaper to see that happen because I think the college sports program is something very, very important to us. All I can say to the team from the Maritimes, I was lined up with a team from the Maritimes back in the 40s, and wish you luck. And from McGill, we wish you luck too. Well, the weather's going to be great. Well, we know that you're going to make us forget about the Grey Cup for 24 hours. Anyway, good luck and thank you very much.
Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you this year's Heck Crichton Trophy winner, Mr. Dave Pickett.
Dave Pickett is only the second player from Western Canada to win the All-Canada title since its inception in 1967. The first was Mel Smith of Alberta in 1971. An indication of the true worth of Dave Pickett came in mid-October when in one single game he completed 30 of 43 passes for 540 yards and 5 touchdowns. On the season, he completed 162 passes in 268 attempts for 2,251 yards. He had an average of 14.3 yards per completion.
Just like to take 30 seconds to say a few quick thank yous. I'd like to thank the CIAU and Cooper and City of Toronto for putting this meeting all this possible. I think I can speak on behalf of all the people all Canadians who were able to come down here. It's done a lot for college football. I'd like to thank, number one, the head coach at the University of Saskatchewan, Val Schneider, came and gave us the attitude I think we needed to be a contender. I'm sure all the players in the team considered him more than a coach. He was a real friend to us. And lastly, I'd like to thank my teammates back at Saskatchewan. Let's face it, they don't pick this trophy winner from a losing team, and I'd like to thank them for making us a winner. I'd like to say good luck to both teams playing tomorrow. I'm sure you'll do a job to be credible to college football in Canada. Thank you.
Here at the CNE in Toronto, the halftime show continues in a moment.
Back in the 20s, IAC got its start in the money business by financing automobiles. It was a good way to start because in the 30s and 40s, Canada really became a nation on wheels. IAC grew. People liked the way we did business, So the more cars there were, the more business we did. By the 50s, we were established leaders in car finance. But now we were using our expertise in many areas. Not only cars, but trucks of all kinds, trailers, buses, tractors. We even financed railroad trains. Today, almost 50 years later, IAC finances and leases everything from jet aircraft to lake freighters to manufacturing equipment. But we still have a special affection for transportation. After all, we really help put this country on the road.
IAC is the largest leasing and financing company in Canada. IAC, we put money in action.
This is the CBC Television Network.
This is your Grey Cup station in Toronto, CBLT, Channel 5, Cable 6.
Our special guest at halftime, Don Loney. Don, former player with the Ottawa Rough Riders, the Calgary Stampeders, and the Toronto Argonauts, and now the head coach at St. Francis Xavier. Don, you must be very impressed with the weather conditions here.
Frank, you know, every time anybody comes down east, they always tell us we have the worst weather in Canada, you know. But when I come up here, it makes me feel good to see this today. And I think Keith brought it up with him. I think that was the little extra thing he brought up today.
Well, I think we might have brought some from Edmonton from last week's ball game in the Western semifinal. Although the conditions were somewhat different, they were certainly adverse, and you'd have to say that that's true today here.
Golly, go from about two below to what we got today is really something.
Well, we certainly hope it doesn't happen tomorrow for the Grey Cup festivities. But talking about that first half, Don, we're going to take a look at some of the statistics of the first half. Obviously, they're not going to be that exciting. The passing game has got to be severely limited in weather conditions like this.
Yeah, and Robinson's such a great passer. I've seen him play for 4 years, and I thought he'd really come along and matured this year. I thought it would have been a great exhibition today if we had good weather.
Bill is not a particularly good running quarterback. At least that's one scouting report I had from pro sources, but he is a good drop-back passer, and as I understand it, knows the passing game extremely well, which is so very important.
Yeah, he's got a lot of composure, although this year he did start to run a little bit, and that kind of upset the defenses down in our league. He's a very fine pro-type passer.
They have a very unusual setup down. I thought St. Mary's, as far as their offensive attack is concerned, that wide splitting of the offensive line, do you know the theory behind that they use, the reasons they use it?
I think the first, it was the basic split theory was to spread the defense out, and the other thing was the confusion. I don't think that he thought the defenses couldn't adjust to it sufficiently, you see, and it gave them an added advantage during
the one thing they do very successfully, although in conditions like this, again, they haven't done so, is get outside very quickly. They split their offensive backs as well very wide and try to get outside very quick. McGill has done well defensively against them, but probably the best play that St. Mary's had during the first half was the Robinson pass where he hit Kirkpatrick and set up one of their field goals.
Yeah, Kirkpatrick and Clark have been the two good receivers all year. And we didn't think we'd see too much of Clark today from the pass reception. Kirkpatrick would have to step in and do the job. It was a surprising thing to set that play up with the conditions. It was great to see.
Actually, that's got to be a great throw by Bill because he was well covered by McGill. Right. The outstanding player of the first half, though, Don, in your opinion, would be who?
I think, I got to give it to Clark. Here's a kid that really banged up his knee in that last play against Laurentian last week. And I know he had a real bad knee. I was talking to Alan Keith, and he was hesitant about starting him. And that punt where he set up that first single was a beauty. I think he deserves a lot of credit, a lot of guts.
Well, he's also, I believe, the leading scorer, is he not, during the course of the year?
Yeah, he was the leading scorer, and he made the Canadian Intercollegiate All-Star team.
Well, we saw him kicking a field goal here, and of course he's accounted for all of the points at this point. St. Mary's, of course, leading this ball game 8-0 over McGill, and our halftime show will continue in just a moment.
Sorry about that.
See that man down there? I share a lot more than a trout stream with him. He's my Sun Life man. And when he first approached me about life insurance, I sort of hemmed and hawed, you know. Then he said, look, it's your life, not mine. I don't mind helping, but I shouldn't be doing all your worrying for you. You know, he was right. Why should some other guy be doing all the thinking about my family's tomorrow? So we worked out a plan together, a registered retirement savings plan. It can let me defer up to $4,000 in taxable income each year and protect my savings. It means my family and I have a pretty nice tomorrow. Freedom. And I have a nice feeling today. peace of mind. If you're not getting those two things, maybe you should share a little responsibility with a tomorrow builder.
Keith Harris, the president of the CIAU, this is some day. You aren't kidding, Robert. We came into town on Wednesday, and I thought Toronto had control of the weather. I really did. It was the most pleasant weather I've experienced at this time of year in Toronto. But I'm sure that they all took the day off and threw the switch. You know, this microphone we're using, it is a microphone. It's not a loaf of bread. We had to cover it a special way because it got so wet during that first half. But it's not the only thing that's wet, is it? Well, there's a lot of improvisation going on today, believe me. Now, the CIAU has moved their game inside the Grey Cup game. Is this going to be a continuing plan? You're going to try, or you're going to keep the game in Toronto? We're going to have to look at this very closely, Bob, and evaluate it in the forthcoming months. There's a lot to be said for having it at this time, but then there's a lot to be said for doing it on our own. And I think that this is a unique occasion. We grabbed at the opportunity and said, let's try it, you know. But we're going to have to really study it very carefully. Okay, Keith Harris, thank you very, very much. And hey, the rain stopped. The rain stopped. Okay, we'll be back with the second half as the College Bowl continues from the CNE Stadium in Toronto.
Sometimes you head to where the sun goes down. Kinda nice to know the world turns round. There's a special place for you somewhere, and half the fun in life is getting there. So would you really rather have a Buick? A Buick? A Buick? Would you really rather have a Buick? When half the fun in life is getting there. Would you really rather have a Buick this year?
The Buick Century Regal. V8 engine, automatic transmission, and power steering, all standard. And now, 4 doors too. The Buick Century Regal. It opens the doors of the sporty car to the family man.
Would you really rather have a Buick this year?
Thomas, there are days to have unique displays, and this is one. I don't imagine you've worked under any worse conditions, have you?
No, absolutely not. I've never seen anything so wet, you know, unless it's Lake Erie or something like that. Just nothing. I'm not even cold anymore. I'm just numb.
What's the reaction over there on the St. Mary's bench? I mean, they've been able to kick a few points and get on the scoreboard and get the lead. What are they doing over there?
Well, they're not doing anything particular. They got good field position in that second quarter, and they capitalized on it to the nth degree. I was a little surprised that Robinson threw there near the end of that quarter. I thought they might have gone in for a major, but they're very happy. And Ken Clark, I wanted to talk to him, but he kicked all those points. He's just so happy. There's no talking to him at all.
You know, the one thing about college sports and a day like today, I mean, the weather conditions are so severe, but those fans behind you are going crazy.
Listen, just at the beginning of the game, they announced on the PA system, I think Don Whitman mentioned it, that they could come over under the covered stands if they wanted to, but they came all the way up here from Halifax, a couple of hundred strong. They're having a good time. I don't think they can feel the cold or the wet either by now.
The fans up on this side are exactly the same way, and of course they have the McGill band up there, and I think they'd like to drown everybody right about now, that McGill band.
That's right, and also looking up there,
Thomas, there are days to have unique displays, and this is one. I don't imagine you've worked under any worse conditions ever?
No, absolutely not. I've never seen anything so wet, you know, unless it's Lake Erie or something like that. Just nothing. I'm not even cold anymore. I'm just numb.
What's the reaction over there on the St. Mary's bench? I mean, they've been able to kick a few points and get on the scoreboard and get the lead. What are they doing over there?
Well, they're not doing anything particular. They got good field position in that second quarter, and they capitalized on it to the nth degree. I was a little surprised that Robinson threw there near the end of that quarter. I thought they might have gone in for a major, but they're very happy. And Ken Clark, I wanted to talk to him, but he kicked all those points. He's just so happy. There's no talking to him at all.
You know, the one thing about college sports and a day like today, I mean, the weather conditions are so severe, but those fans behind you are going crazy.
Listen, just at the beginning of the game, they announced on the PA system, I think Don Whitman mentioned it, that they could come over under the covered stands if they wanted to, but they came all the way up here from Halifax, a couple of hundred strong. They're having a good time. I don't think they can feel the cold or the wet either by now.
The fans up on this side are exactly the same way, and of course they have the McGill band up there, and I think they'd like to drown everybody right about now, that McGill band.
That's right, and also looking up there, you can't see it from our camera positions, but there's a flag that is very well hidden up there, and it's blowing like 60, which is an indication of what the wind situation is like.
You know, I was talking to the officials as they came to the sidelines at various times, and they said the only trouble with them is they don't have webbed feet.
That's very true. I've never seen a field of any kind. In fact, maybe natural turf would be better in a situation like that because there'd be more area for it to drain away into.
Except for one thing, that natural turf, I don't think we would have any of it out there right now, and it would really be difficult to play.
All you can see would be the helmets bobbing along in the mud, I'm afraid.
Okay, Tom. Now let's go back up and see those guys up in that dry press box.
Well, Bob and Tom, perhaps under other situations and game conditions, it has been dry in the press box, but the way that wind is blowing today, it's blowing the rain right into our press box, so we're not completely dry or protected from the elements up here. Statistically, 105 yards for St. Mary's in the first half and 98 for McGill. Not really much discrepancy. Rushing, 76 for St. Mary's, 98 for McGill, and in the passing department, see that big zero tacked under McGill, 38 yards for St. Mary's, and of course quarterback Robinson lost 9 yards attempting to pass. And completions, 2 for 8 for Billy Robinson, and Otters is 0 for 2. One turnover, and that was forced as a result of Kelly being unable to get that third down kick away. It's been a kicking game that has accounted for the scoring for St. Mary's. Clark has put the points on the board. Romano and Kirkpatrick, two of the players huddled over there, discussing, I'm sure, what they may have to do in the second half. St. Mary's attempting to add a collegiate football championship to trophies that have previously been won intercollegiately in sport for this fine school in Halifax. In terms of possession, really not too much to choose either. St. Mary's had a slight edge, and it was the team with the wind advantage that controlled the ball. And in the second half, it was St. Mary's moving downfield for the 8 points on the kicking prowess, as we mentioned, of Ken Clark. As the players get set to move back onto the field for the second half of this ball game, it's an opportunity for us to review some of the All-Canadian selections that were made last night. Mike Smith is the center from Carleton. Bart Evans of Manitoba and Doug Smith of Laurier are the guards. The tackles are Don Dawson of McGill and Heinz Redmen of Alberta. The tight end is John Roderick of Ottawa, and the split end is John Konahowski of Saskatchewan. The flanker is Ken Clark of St. Mary's, Ross Brooks of McGill, Dave Haddon of Queens, and Gord Patterson of Manitoba, and Dave Lane of Guelph for the running backs, and Dave Pickett of Saskatchewan, the quarterback, and he too the winner of the Heck Crichton Trophy as the outstanding collegiate player in 1973. Defensively, these were the people who made it. The All-Canadians, Marvin Alamang of Acadia as an end. Rob Etherington of Laurier as an end. The tackles are Brian Murray and Al Shamanchuk. The linebackers, Wally Parker of Laurier, Bob Toogood of Manitoba, and Fraser McDonald of St. Mary's. And the halfbacks, Brian Quick of McGill, Al Bernard of Manitoba, Alan Sherrick of Acadia, Perry Arnold of Western, and John Kelly of Guelph. So our congratulations to those fine players who have been chosen All-Canadian for the 73 intercollegiate season. Romano goes back along with Burgess for this second half kickoff. And again, McGill will have the wind at their backs. Matkowski having a little difficulty. He gives it back to Romano, and Romano is upended at the 38. That was a 40-yard kick with a 13-yard return. Wind velocity 22, gusting to 28, and swirling and causing a great deal of problems for the kickers and the passers here at CNE. Someone pointed out during the halftime break, with all that moisture lying in the field, if that mercury drops about 10 degrees, they could really have problems for the Grey Cup spectacle tomorrow. We certainly hope not. Santucci, the ball carrier, on the first down, and he's across the 40 with Quick making the tackle.
I guess we'd have to have an ice bowl down if those conditions existed. We've had a fog bowl and a wind bowl.
Of course, you played in that fog bowl back in 1962. They weren't playing on artificial turf in those days.
That's right, Don. I also played in the famous wind bowl in 1965, where the wind was blowing, I believe, in the opposite direction from the east at about 40 or 50 miles an hour. We gave up 3 safety touches, and there's these conditions. We keep talking about them so much, but they certainly are dominating this football game.
You're looking at Santucci run the ball. A moment ago you saw his record in this game, 9 carries for 40 yards. Third and just under 4 yards for a first down. Good kick by Clark, taken by Brooks. Penalty flags go down as Brooks is across the 30 and dumped at the 33. Theriot was the man who made contact with him. However, we'll wait for the signal from referee Fred Luscombe as to the infraction.
Got a good shot down of the wall being set up on this punt, and had it not been for Theriot, I think this would have been a very successful return. Watch Theriot, number 53, get to the outside and make the stop.
Well, the penalty appears to be against McGill. Illegal substitution is the infraction. A 40-yard punt and an 8-yard return. So with that penalty being marched off by referee Luscombe, that moves the ball to the 54 of McGill and enables St. Mary's to retain possession, and they have a first down. Vanier, and he has a gain of, well, let's see, make that about 7 yards. It will be 2nd and 3.
Another first down by St. Mary's here, and Bill Robinson will be down in a position on the field where he can throw the ball. Even against that wind, he can start throwing the ball at least sharp.
12:53 the time remaining in this third quarter. 8-0 St. Mary's leads. Robinson keeps, and he appears to have a first down. Bill Delory made the tackle. Referee Luscombe gives the signal, and it is a first down. Romano, number 7, and number 67, Riley, 2 of the defensive stalwarts for St. Mary's at the bench. Romano, a defensive back, and Riley, the big 280-pound, 18-year-old freshman tackle. Frank, you called the shot. Robinson is going to throw over the head of the intended receiver, Marineri.
No, there's no question about it. Robinson and the St. Mary's want to put that ball in the air, and even with the conditions that they're living under here today, they're going to throw that football when the opportunity presents themselves, and of course field position is going to dictate that while it wins against them.
Well, that McGill defense, Manny and Tebow are the ends. Margulies and Wiseman are the tackles. Lorion, Delorier, and Beauregard are the linebackers. And we have Bonenberg, Quick, Gady, DeGraff, and Warner as the defensive backs. An incomplete pass. Robinson just floated it out there. It appeared to be intended for Hotchkiss. Against the wind, it is not a day for passing, as Robinson will probably attest. He would probably claim that it isn't a day for passing under any conditions, regardless of which way you're going.
I hate to say this, Danny, I don't even believe it's a day for football.
Frank, I thought as a resident of Vancouver that precipitation was something you grew accustomed to.
Never rains in the Evergreen Playground, my boy.
Clark's kick, an end-over-end boot that is going to bounce out of bounds, and probably that's the best position to kick that ball, eliminating any possibilities of a run back. A 28-yard boot, and it's first down at the 14. We have a timeout. CBC Sports action continues in a moment. The score is St. Mary's 8 and McGill nothing.
Team set. Come on, 1, 2, 3. The best minute of the day. Best minute of the day from Polaroid.
Polaroid Square Shooter 2 Land Camera. Only $34.95.
Is there any other way?
Pontiac Astra, an economy car that performs great and does wonders with a gallon of gasoline. Pontiac Astra, the Canadian-built economy car that's priced below many of the top-selling import models. Pontiac Astra. Let yourself go.
McGill scrimmaging 1st and 10. The ball is at their own 14. The pitch to Cowie. Behind the blocking of Dawson. And he reaches the 22 before he's stopped by Allison.
Pretty good job done by the fellow you mentioned, Dawson, number 68.
Dawson, an all-Canadian tackle. And now an injured player for St. Mary's. Panzulo, number 24, is being helped off. He's one of several Americans on the roster of St. Mary's. He's from Norristown, Pennsylvania. He's an art student. He's a sophomore. 2nd and 2, the upcoming play for McGill. Jim Brown is in to replace Panzulo defensively. Cowie has the first down as he's across the 25. Wasson was in to make the tackle, number 43.
He just does pick up this first down, Don, but possession of that football, once again, is so very important to McGill at this point because they've had a lot of trouble with their kicking game.
Otters with the wind, looking to throw. And it's almost picked off by Burgess, intended for Brooks. It's incomplete. So it will be 2nd and 10 for McGill from their own 25. St. Mary's defensive unit had a big ball game in defeating Wilfrid Laurier 1917. So far, they've kept McGill off the board. That's what McGill did to Manitoba last week in the Western Bowl. Cowie has carried 14 times for 67 yards. Winters trying to get away from Riley. Throws incomplete. It was intended for Dunn. 67 Riley was in on Otters. Otters, a second-year medical student at McGill, 22 years of age. He hasn't had much success throwing the ball.
No, this is Doug Wasson, number 43, considered by the St. Mary's coaching staff as their best defensive lineman. He almost picks off an interception on that first down play. But now McGill will be faced with a 3rd down and 10 and have to kick the ball away with just under 10 minutes remaining in this third period.
Santucci and Burgess are back to receive the kick by Kelly. Santucci having difficulty. Now looking for that blocking wall, and a penalty flag goes down as Santucci goes down at the 52.
Now I think we're going to be faced with another clipping call here against St. Mary's. And you know, there's been a lot of conversation about this punting rule, the blocking on punt returns in the collegiate ranks and also in the junior ranks in Canadian football, and suggestions that maybe the CFL should pick this up. The major objection this week in talking to most of the coaches and general managers from the CFL was that they felt that there would be a lot more injuries, and of course on that very type of play, on the clipping type of call.
That was a 40-yard kick by Kelly, his best, 7 yards in the return, but the clipping moves the ball back to the 37. 9:01 is the time remaining in the third quarter. 8-0, St. Mary's leads McGill. Marinari, and he's across the 40. I think perhaps, Frank, the key for St. Mary's in this third quarter going against that wind is to try and use up as much time as possible and control the ball, and then have the wind as their advantage in the fourth quarter.
You know, Don, they've done a pretty good job of that, including in the first quarter, because for a ball club, as we were told, that has not been noted for a running attack throughout the course of the year, I think they maintained possession of the football for the first 5 minutes of this game against that wind as well.
2nd and 6, the play upcoming for St. Mary's. Marinari again, spinning and twisting, and then driven back, and finally brought down by Howie Warner. Marinari, another of the Americans in the lineup of St. Mary's. Number 13, Clark, the St. Mary's kicker. George Gady and Ross Brooks, 26 and 27 respectively, will receive this 3rd down boot. He's getting good protection on that kick, an end-over-end boot, and it rolls out of bounds down at the 26. I don't know whether he's deliberately aiming that ball for the sideline, Frank, but the last 2 boots have rolled out of bounds and prevented any opportunity for a run back, and against the wind, those have been excellent kicks. That was a 41-yard effort.
I was going to mention that before, Don, when you made that comment, how appropriate it was, because it's something I've never understood why the CFL coaching staffs have not instructed their punters to do, and try to kick that ball out of bounds, because, of course, in the CFL and here on a single point, you get the ball back out to the 25-yard line to scrimmage it if you do kick a single. But, you know, 25 yards into the end zone, you should have quite a wide target to kick it out of bounds and negate any punt return.
Brooks on the reverse, and he is up to the 38, and that'll be very close to a 1st down. Brooks didn't carry the ball that much this year for McGill, but when he did, he averaged 14.4 yards per carry.
This is a counter play, Don. It's the kind of thing that Don Warrington and the Edmonton Eskimos run so very well.
Well, I was a little premature in calling that a 1st down. They've changed things just a little. The yardstick markers are on the near side now instead of the far side. They're a little used to looking over the far side of the field.
They've hidden them very well from us at this point.
It's just shy of the 1st down. It will be 2nd and less than 1. 7:06 remains in the third quarter. 8-0. St. Mary's leads McGill. The Redmen with the football. Going deep, intended for Brooks, and it's incomplete. Pelham attempted the interception. He was back covering. Romano was also there, and I think Otters was attempting to catch that St. Mary's defense napping, but it didn't work. On that second and short situation, he thought they'd all be packed in tight, anticipating the run.
Otters has certainly had a lot more trouble in throwing the football than Robinson. I think the wet conditions, maybe he's not as familiar with them. I don't know what his background is, but he's had problems putting anything on that football when he does pass.
Well, he completed 66 of 104 during the regular season, but he zipped for 5 with 1 interception this afternoon. Third and less than 1. Otters keeps. It appears as though he's got it. He's wrestled down by 43 Wasson. He's got the first down. Ball is positioned at the 37. 6:22 remains in quarter 3. 8-0 St. Mary's leads it. Tomorrow, of course, all the activity surrounding the Grey Cup game will be coming your way on the CBC television network, including Grey Cup preview, an analytical look at the 2 competing teams, Edmonton and Ottawa, in the hour prior to kickoff at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Cowie, following his blocking, picking his way through very nicely. He's very close to a first down. Masco was one of those up front who threw a key block for Cowie.
Cowie's been quite successful throughout this ball game and going to the outside, and McGill is able to get their offensive lineman to the outside and lead him up the field, and that's the reason they've been able to run the ball successfully. Actually, I'm very impressed with McGill's offensive line. They've done a good job firing off the football, but they just haven't been able to control the drive down and put any points on the board.
Shy of the first down, it'll be second and about 1, and I'm wondering if Otters will again attempt to throw that bomb on this short yardage situation. 2 setbacks are Lapkowski and Cowie. Now he's going to get that first down. Cowie should have it. He was up in the vicinity of the 49 before he was driven back by Fraser McDonald. Charlie Bailey in his second year as head coach of the McGill Redmen. His assistants Ray Bailey, Dave Lennon, and Bill McKenna. Coming into the ball game, it's number 64, Peter Miller, and going out is Tony Cipollino at the defensive end spot for St. Mary's. 4:50 is the time remaining in quarter 3. The quick pitch to Cowie. He breaks the first tackle, and then he's snowed under by Peter Miller. I suppose snowed under is a somewhat inappropriate term. Wet, rainy out.
I think it's very appropriate, Don. It's got to just get a couple of degrees colder. Actually, I think some of this that's coming in here is a little bit of snow. Last week it was frost flakes. How do you like that one?
That's a good term.
Actually, 71 Kendall does an excellent job, even though he doesn't make the tackle on this play. He forces it back up in the middle where he's got help.
Cipollini apparently received some instruction from the bench. He's back in there now, and Miller is out. Second and 11. Otters throwing, and it's incomplete. McDonald and Burgess were both back covering on Brooks. Brooks was a favorite target of Otters during the regular season. He got 16 passes for 8 touchdowns. He's number 27, just returning to the huddle. So on third and 11, McGill will be forced to give up the football. Burgess goes back along with Santucci. 3 minutes and 41 seconds is the time remaining in the third quarter. An excellent kick by Kelly. That's his best of the day. It's taken by Burgess at the 10. And then he slips at the 21. 49 yards the length of the kick, 9 yards the return. St. Mary's is first and 10 at their own 21. CBC Sports action continues in a moment. The score is St. Mary's 8 and McGill nothing.
Taking tape. Panasonic's crazy color tape recorder. You don't need much to afford her. Red, yellow,
Another crazy color portable from Panasonic.
Did you ever wake up at the right time on the wrong day? It'll never happen again. Not with Panasonic's new digital clock radio. One look, and you'll not only know that it's 7:15 in the morning, but that the morning is the 18th, and the 18th is a Sunday. So you can relax. Panasonic digital clock radios. There's one that can wake you up.
Well, the St. Mary's fans have had plenty to get excited about. I don't know how our end zone cameraman feels about it. Oh, pal, I hope you're protected up there. Frank promises to buy you something nice and warm after the game. That ball is fumbled, and McGill, I believe, is recovered. Marineri fumbled, and Margulies recovered. Number 60 coming up with that ball for McGill. And that could be a big turnover in this collegiate final.
Now, we've been talking all day that the turnovers just have to become a factor in a ball game like this, and of course this is the first big one that McGill's had the opportunity to have, and we're going to be able to see if they can take advantage of it now with 3 minutes remaining in this period. I believe the ball will be spotted on almost exactly the 25-yard line.
Danny was the man who punched that ball loose, with Margulies getting in to make the recovery.
John, this is a matter of interest. How would you be able to read that depth chart you have in front of you now? It's just a little bit snow-covered at this point.
Art Darch described it earlier as looking like minestrone.
Who does he play for now? I'm having trouble with 2 of these names.
Well, this is the deepest penetration that McGill has made in the ball game. Howie is upended right at the line of scrimmage.
And that was by Wasson, number 43, the fellow we said that the St. Mary's coaches feel is the best defensive lineman for St. Mary's. Art approved of that comment.
Wasson, number 43, a 19-year-old sophomore. St. Mary's defense being tested again. McGill, 2nd and 10. Swinging it out to Cowie. He's got some blocking. However, he's brought down at the 17 by Doug Wasson. And that's the first completed pass of the afternoon for Otters in 7 attempts.
And Otters does just a great job here in not looking toward his receiver. And of course, that's very key in establishing his screen pass. He looks downfield and tries to pick out a receiver. And of course, he diverts the attention of the defense in that manner. Unfortunately, Don, as you said, I think they're approximately 1.5 yards short. So they're obviously going to gamble on it and try to retain possession.
Well, I think that dog has found a new watering hole over there on the bench, and I think those fellows with the Stetsons probably found some watering holes earlier. Lamkovsky on the 3rd and 2 play, and he's got a big first down to the 10. Pelham made the tackle.
Well, this McGill offensive ball club has been a very patient football team all day long, just trying to grind it out, establish a running game. Of course, one of the reasons, of course, they've been so unsuccessful in throwing the ball with, how would you say Mr. Otters, the quarterback of McGill's first name, Don?
Easy, Frank Aldis.
Oh, I see. You don't have to make it sound so easy. It reads tough.
Only for you Iowa boys.
It doesn't rain in Iowa.
I'm beginning to believe what Russ Jackson says about the offensive tackle.
Russell.
Lamkovsky again down to about the 2. Fraser McDonald was in on that stop for St. Mary's. Manzillo also assisted. Now it's 2nd down, and I believe they could still get a first down without scoring. However, that forward marker is just inches away from the goal line. down from the 2. Cowie, touchdown. Don Cowie has been the workhorse of that ground game for McGill all afternoon, putting it in for the major score. And now we have an interesting situation, Frank. They do have the two-point conversion in collegiate football, and that could tie the game.
Absolutely right, Don. I'd forgotten that.
McGill has not gone for the two-point try all season. We were talking to Coach Charlie Bailey about it, and he said the only time we really contemplated it was in that 78-6 trouncing of Three Rivers in the collegiate final, and he said then we really didn't want to rub it in.
Well, I mean, you would really have to make that decision when you're only winning like 70-6, you know, whether or not you needed one or two.
Well, this could be a rather interesting play upcoming. Convert attempts most times are more or less matter of fact, but now with a two-point discrepancy on the board, Kelly preparing to kick, Petronero, the holder. Let's see if they kick or go for a two-point try. Yes, they're going to go for the 2. Petronero throwing into the end zone, and it's knocked down. So the score holds at 8-6 for St. Mary's leading McGill. Charlie Bailey perhaps now wondering if he made the right decision.
Let's take a look how McGill did score their only points during the ball game. That's a second down play that moved the ball down to the 2-yard line where Cowie scores from here, as you see, number 32. The first score for McGill, Redmen, during the course of this ball game. And Don, I still have to question the coaches if I can, and at this point when you're behind 8-6 and there's so much problems in terms of scoring during the course of this ball game, why they would not go for that two-point conversion. What's your theory?
Frank, I'll let the experts analyze those particular plays.
You're going to call it like it is.
I'm going to call it like it is.
All right.
The time on the clock has actually expired. However, McGill is going to, yes, this fourth quarter is underway, and there's the kick taken by Matkowski at the 40-yard line. So that was the final play of the quarter, and the fourth quarter has St. Mary's scrimmaging from the 40. So they will now have the win. CBC Sports action continues in a moment. The score is St. Mary's 8 and McGill 6.
If you were to paint a picture of your ideal full-size car, you'd begin with a new look in front and a new styling on top with a graceful new colonnade window. The interior as luxurious as possible because your idea of a car is a cut above other people's. Oops, mustn't forget the door handles because you want to get going. And there you have it. Your new 1974 Pontiac. The wide-track people have a way with cars.
Yes, sir. The Zip is a Polaroid land camera. Black and white pictures in 30 seconds, $14.95. I'm holding one in my hand right now. Indeed, we have, sir. We certainly have square shooter 2.2s. 2s, too. This is an all-purpose camera, strictly color, 34...
Well, we're 4 seconds into the fourth quarter. And quarterback Robinson loads his team out first and 10 at the 40. Good hold for Santucci. That's his best run of the afternoon. And he's down to the 54. Let's go down now and bring in a rather wet Bob Moyer.
Thanks, Don. Don Cowie. Things changed around a little bit from McGill at the end of the third quarter. This footing, how was it for you? You scored the touchdown.
It's very slippery out there on this artificial turf range. And it's hard to make any good cuts and hard to get traction. Very hard, especially getting a start. Very hard.
On the touchdown play at the goal line, what kind of a play was it for you?
It was just a straight drive off tackle with a halfback walk and the corner linebacker.
Okay, Don. Thanks very much. Don?
Thurio, number 53, is the left offensive guard of the St. Mary's Huskies, and he's the guy that provided the big block for Santucci there. Moved the ball up to midfield.
Corbett has replaced Margulies defensively for McGill. The Santucci again, this time his advance was limited to 3 yards by Kevin Corbett. Corbett number 66, and now he's going to the bench again as Margulies, who was shaken up, comes back. 59 is Nanny. 60 Margulies as that defensive unit deploys. Wiseman and Tebow complete the front four. On the draw, it's Santucci. He slips out of the grasp of Wiseman but can't get away. He stopped short of a first down, and the kicking unit for St. Mary's comes on.
Don, after your facetious comment about offensive linemen, I would like to read you one more pro scouting report on one of these young fellas. Number 53, Bud Thurio for St. Mary's. He's the best offensive lineman in the conference, a good hitter, a good pull, both short and wide, and very, very intelligent.
Okay, Frank, I'll accept that.
See, I told you
the kick is blocked. The boot by Clark. And all the way downfield is Tebow. A 34-yard return at the 31, and let's watch that one being blocked again.
Don, I didn't pick up who got the block. Madden, I believe, number 50 for McGill, and number 63, Hook, finally comes up with this football, and this is the second time that McGill has gotten a break deep in St. Mary's into the field. They'll be scrimmaging now from the 31-yard line.
First and 10 for McGill with 13:05 remaining in the fourth quarter. Lapkowski struggling, and he is going to be close to a first down.
Don, a comment from Bill Bewley, our ISO director over our communication system here, is that was great running for our linemen as well. I don't want to let that go by either.
You linemen are really going to gang up on me now, aren't you? Bridges was in to make that tackle, and one of the injured McGill players on the bench, number 78, and that's Mark Beauregard, and on the field there's an injured St. Mary's player, and Mike Riley, number 67. Riley is the big fellow we referred to earlier. Those St. Mary's cheerleaders now, they have to provide plenty of vocal support. 8-6 is the score in favor of the Huskies. However, the Redmen are threatening again after blocking that punt. Bob Moyer, as the injured player is treated, what have you got to report?
Well, Beauregard is going to be all right, Don. What happened? He fell on his shoulder, pushed it back a little bit, and got a little bit of a nerve tingle in there, but the club doctor said he'll be okay.
Right. Well, of course, we certainly hope that Riley is going to be okay as well. We don't like to see injuries to any athletes at any time. Second and 2 for McGill. Cowie has got the first down inside the 20. Stopped by Rod Allison. Cowie scored the touchdown for McGill, and he's done most of the rushing work.
Take a look at him once again. We'll get his statistics in just a moment, Don. He's got the only 6 points, of course, for the Redmen. Cowie, number 32.
20 carries for 84 yards for Cowie. And it's a first down at the 18. Lapkowski to the 15. It will be a pickup of 3. 11:46 remains in the fourth quarter. 8-6. St. Mary's leads McGill. We've got a timeout. CBC Sports Action continues in a moment. The score is St. Mary's 8 and McGill 6.
Which would you rather drive over the next few years? A beautiful new Buick or something less? Think of it this way. A luxury version of an ordinary car can cost about the same as a new Buick LeSabre, with traditional Buick value and comfort. So when it should cost you no more, wouldn't you really rather have a Buick? After all, it's your money.
Come on, kids, here comes the train.
Mommy, can we ride home in the back hatch when Daddy comes?
Hatchback, honey. And no, you can't.
But it's still at the back, Mommy.
Yeah, but it's still called a hatchback, honey. Oh, there's Daddy.
Hi, kids. Ventura, the pocket-size, pocket-price Pontiac, with the kind of room a family needs.
Throw me the keys to the back hatch, hon.
Ventura hatchback. The wide track people have a way with cars.
Don Whitman along with Frank Rigney, Bob Moyer and Tom McKee at CNE for the final 11 minutes and 31 seconds of this collegiate championship. McGill threatening, 2nd and 6. Cowie, and he's brought down by Kendall. Tackle made in the vicinity of the 11-yard stripe. Tom McKee, you've been somewhat silent over on that St. Mary's bench. What's happening?
It wouldn't be saying too much here at the Huskies bench to say that they are a mighty nervous lot right now. They enjoy a 2-point advantage, but they are not in very good position. Let's see if they can hold them off.
Well, this is going to be a big play right here, 3rd and 3. And they're going for it. You almost think that a field goal would be natural here, but they're going for it, and I think they've been stopped by Wasson, number 43.
Well, I really don't understand that. You know, I don't know how you justify it. When they were behind by 2 points, they failed to try to get a 2-point conversion on their extra point attempt, which would have obviously tied the ball game had it been successful. I shouldn't say that. They did attempt it, but they attempted a play which would almost be a fluke to complete, because he rolled out one way and came back the other way. Now where they had an opportunity to kick a field goal and go ahead in this ball game, they tried to maintain possession of the ball on the 10-yard line.
Now St. Mary's retains that 8-6 advantage. And Santucci slides to the 14. Margulies was the man who pulled the feet out from under him, and then Lorian came in to make sure he stayed down.
Don, while we have a moment here, I'd like to thank a special buddy of mine, Bobby Ackles, the assistant general manager of the BC Lions, who's here scouting the football game, one of the many pro scouts looking at some of these young fellows, and Bobby's been quite a help to us today.
On 2nd down, Robinson throwing, great catch by Telfer. At the 23, that's going to be a first down.
Don, if I'm not mistaken, Telfer has been the leading receiver for St. Mary's throughout the course of the year. That number, 2 fingers you're holding up, means that he must have been the 2nd leading receiver for St. Mary's. He made quite a reception there.
Frank, our signals didn't work that well. That was his 2nd pass of the ball game.
Oh, I thought maybe he only caught 2 all year, the way you were frantically doing that.
Marineri is into the 27, stopped by Tebow. You were right, Frank, about Telfer, however. He was their leading receiver with something like 23 receptions.
See, you're trying to correct my correction now, are you?
8:58 remains in the 4th quarter. 8-6, St. Mary's leading. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people questioning Charlotte Bailey if this score should hold about that 3rd down gamble. Marineri is caught by Tebow. And then pinned by the Graf back at the 23. So the loss in the play forces St. Mary's into a punting situation on 3rd down. Clark drops back to kick. He's standing at about the 11. Excellent boot. And with the big bounce, Brooks fell back at about the 30-yard line, and the ball rolls all the way to the 5. And he now is stopped at the 13, and now McGill is certainly up against it. That was an 80-yard kick by Ken Clark with an 8-yard return.
Well, Don Loney, in talking to him at halftime, I picked Clark as the outstanding player in the first half and said, had a lot of great things to say about him because of he's playing in an injury situation. He's got a torn ligament or a cartilage, possibly an operation pending after this ball game, but it certainly doesn't look like it. We're even kicking that football.
8:04 is the time remaining. Babkowski cutting in to the 20. Fraser McDonald, the all-Canadian linebacker, is in on the tackle. McDonald and Clark are the two members of St. Mary's who are all-Canadian selections. And the three from McGill are Don Dawson, the offensive tackle, Ross Brooks, the flanker, and the defensive halfback, Brian Quick. Howie inside, and it appears as though he stopped short of a first down. Larry Bridges was there to make the tackle. Otters checking the yardsticks and then heading to the sidelines as the punting unit comes on. 8-6, St. Mary's leading McGill with 7 minutes and 11 seconds still to play in this fourth quarter. It's going to be interesting to see who is selected as recipient of the Ted Morris Memorial Trophy as the outstanding player in the College Bowl.
Kenny Clark has my vote to this point, Don.
Bad snap, Kelly having difficulty with it under pressure. He's brought down at the 3. And that could be the ball game right there. Roy Kendall was the man who got in on the McGill punter. They were already first contact of the artificial turf at about the 5. Kendall, 71, being congratulated by his mates as he comes off. And a dejected Ron Kelly heads to his bench. He's had difficulty with the snap on 2 occasions. He didn't get one kick away, although he got back to the line of scrimmage. That time with Kendall in pursuit, he had no chance to run it off. There's the pitch to Santucci, and Santucci gets to the line of scrimmage and not much more. That was Delore making the tackle. The initial contact with Santucci, 22, was made by DeGraff. So it's second and goal. They spot the ball at the 3. .606 remains. Santucci was met right at the line of scrimmage by Mike Lorion. Lorion 34.
It was quite a hit by Lorion too. Watch him, number 34. Santucci just takes a handoff and an off tackle play, and Lorion really puts it to him.
Babkowski coming into the ball game for St. Mary's, replacing Marineri. Well, a 3rd and 3 gamble failed at the other end moments ago for McGill. This one, however, might not prove so costly if it doesn't work. Let's see what happens. Well, a bad snap, a bad exchange, and McGill takes over. That appears to be Margulies, number 60, on top of that ball.
It appeared to me that Bill Robinson, the quarterback of St. Mary's, just wanted to get back out of there too quick. I think he was trying to throw to his wide receiver on the left side. Take a look at it again.
The ball just pops up, and Margulies is the first man in, and he recovers for the Redmen. So they stave off a potential St. Mary's threat at their goal line. Got a long way to go with 5:03 remaining, and they're also operating against that strong wind. Lapkowski is up to the 12-yard line. Cipollini was one of those in on the tackle. 4:45 now shows on the clock as the clock is moving.
See Lapkowski on just his handoff, and a good block by Collin there, number 32, as he led him through the hole.
Second and about 1.5. Cowie is in the middle of that pileup. He was driven back. Let's see where they spot it. Kendall and Allison were both over on the tackle. Allison, number 63, spent 3 years in the Canadian Army before enrolling at St. Mary's. He's a freshman in arts. Well, it was stopped short of a first down, and this is a third down play. That is a vital one with 4:07 remaining. Here, I don't want to judge that one. It's going to be close. Cowie was driven back by Cipollini. Well, it is a first down. His progress had carried him in the vicinity of the 14 or 15-yard line.
Well, once again, you'd have to say McGill's offensive line has just done a great job all day. Cipollini comes in there, makes about as good a move as he possibly can from his defensive end position, but McGill is getting off the ball extremely well, and the reason they have been successful on the ground.
Trev Campbell has replaced Dunn at that flanker position for McGill, undoubtedly with a play from the bench. Lapkowski on the right side to the 20, stopped by Doug Wasson. That looks like a Nova Scotia flag that a couple of gentlemen were attempting to remove from the CNE grandstand. However, one of the fine men in blue spotted their attempt and has obviously deterred them from removing it. Lapkowski again, up to the 30 to the 32. And that should be enough. 2 minutes and 43 seconds remaining. We have a timeout.
That time, Lapkowski was led by Rick Flynn, number 61, the right offensive tackle on a quick pitch play.
CBC Sports action continues in a moment. The score is St. Mary's 8 and McGill 6.
If you think that Pontiac's trim-size Le Mans gets attention from people who know something about style, you're right. And if you think a Pontiac Le Mans Sport Coupe gets the nod from people who don't impress easy, you're right again. But if you've got the idea that Pontiac Luxury Le Mans is too rich for families like yours, you don't know Pontiac's way with luxury. Pontiac Le Mans Sport, and Luxury Le Mans are attracting all kinds of attention for all the right reasons.
The Redmen facing at St. Mary's defense with 2:41 remaining. First down from the 31. Brooks was stopped right at the line of scrimmage. Tom, what's happening now at the St. Mary's bench?
Bill Robinson, it's not the best kind of day to be a quarterback.
What?
It's not the best kind of day.
No, it certainly isn't. Just hope it keeps like it is right now.
It's kind of a repeat of last week's game.
Yeah, we're up 2 points with 2:20 to go. Same thing.
It'll be a long 2 minutes.
It sure is.
As St. Mary's recovers, Bridges comes up with the ball back at the 5-yard line, and that might just be the ball game with 2:05 remaining.
Big Mike Riley, the fellow we were telling you about so many times earlier, 6'3", 280, 18-year-old tackle for St. Mary's, is the guy that puts the big pressure on the quarterback, causing the fumble. Bridges finally picks it up. Going to be excellent field position for St. Mary's on the 8-yard line with just 2 minutes remaining. Take a look at it from the end zone. Riley's number 67.
A 24-yard loss. You see Bridges in to scoop up that ball at the 5. They rule it a touchdown at the 7, so it's first and goal from that point. Robinson throwing into the end zone, and it's picked. No. It appeared as though it was going to be picked off by Bob Vandenberg. It was intended for Kirkpatrick. It goes as an incomplete pass. And Frank, I suppose some might question the wisdom of Robinson throwing with only 2 minutes remaining.
Don, I really don't understand it. There have been a couple of calls obviously sent in from the bench, which I don't understand, because with 1:41 remaining now, they could have run the time down to somewhat less than a minute, tried a field goal on the last on the 3rd down, and you know they would appear to be in a pretty good position at that point.
This time it's Santucci. He's down. Touchdown. Well, with 1:35 remaining, that should wrap it up for St. Mary's. Angelo Santucci for the touchdown.
Watch Gord Fulmer if you can pick him out there, number 55, the right offensive guard. He does a great job for Santucci. Take a look at it from the end zone. Maybe you can see it a bit better from there. That was Fulmer, 55, who laid the key block.
That makes it 14-6. Conversion attempt upcoming from Ken Clark. You know, for a school with only 2,500 students, a tremendous athletic program. St. Mary's Huskies won the basketball championship in the CIAU this year. They were runner-up to the Toronto Varsity Blues for the hockey championship. Now it seems virtually certain that they are going to wrap their mitts around the Vanier Cup, emblematic of the Canadian Collegiate Football Championship. Backward attempt is no good. The score holds at 14-6. So 2 of 3 varsity championships and a finalist in the other is a pretty fine record in intercollegiate sport for St. Mary's College. Lapkowski for McGill, their leading ball carrier, 101 yards. Cowie had 99 yards, their rushing game, and they've been doing most of that running, however, in their own half of the field.
Don, as long as you're looking at those stats, do we have the stats on the passing game by McGill? Because they can't have very much yardage in this ball game.
1:35 is the time remaining in the 4th quarter. Ball is taken by Brooks back at the 20. And he's caught and brought down by Cipollini on the far side of the field. Well, 1:29 remains now. And one of the interesting situations in collegiate sport with that 2-point conversion rule, McGill can still engineer a tie. A touchdown and a 2-point conversion would do the job. However, time is certainly their enemy, as well as the elements and that defensive unit. Otters now looking to throw. Fakes, then throws, and it's complete. Caught by Kelly. It's short of the first down. He stopped at about the 38. It will be 2nd and 2.
Take a look at Kelly here. He just goes to the outside and sees that Otters, the quarterback's in trouble, and cuts over the middle and picks up 8 yards, I believe, Don.
Lawson and Allison were both in on the stop. Otters again throwing incomplete. It was intended for Kelly. Panzullo came charging up from his defensive half spot for coverage. Well, they have to pull out all the stops now on 3rd down with 52 seconds remaining. They must gamble again. 14-6, St. Mary's leads McGill. Tomorrow, of course, the Grey Cup, the climax to the football season in Canada, Edmonton and Ottawa, and you'll see all the action here on the CBC television network. Intended for Brooks, and it's picked off by Burgess on the far side, and that will be the ball game very definitely. Tom, I think there's a lot of excitement at that St. Mary's bench.
Ken Clark has been named the winner of the Teddy Morris Award as the outstanding player of the game. Ken, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You must have mixed emotions. I know you're in a lot of pain with your right leg. What's the trouble?
Torn cartilage in my knee.
When did you discover that? Was that in this game or?
No, I was last week against Wilfrid Laurier. It doesn't hurt anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, it certainly didn't show today. Congratulations on the award, and it looks as if, well, you're only 30 seconds away now, eh? Congratulations.
Ken Clark, who is also the offensive captain, winner of the Teddy Morris Trophy. And Robinson on 1st down simply grounds the ball, and other recipients of that award include Jerry Sternberg, Terry Gorman, Dal Schneider, Don Bain, Bobby Kramer, Mike Shallow, Bob McGregor, Roger Camarton, and Andy McLeod. A number of those people gone on to professional careers. Perhaps Clark also has aspirations of turning pro. Robinson glances back at the clock, and this could well be, it is the final play of the ball game, and the Canadian Collegiate Champions for 1973, St. Mary's University Huskies of Halifax. And what a great career this school has had in collegiate sports, as we mentioned earlier. A football championship to be added to the basketball title, and while the winners receive the plaudits of their supporters, the McGill Redmen move out into position to congratulate the champions. However, McGill certainly put up a great battle, and the Redmen, back in intercollegiate football a couple of years ago after an absence, certainly proved worthy opponents here at CNE this afternoon. As the sign proclaims, it's a feast for the East, the far East, Halifax, the home of this St. Mary's team. Bill Robinson, the quarterback, number 11, accepting congratulations from McGill as the players line up in the center field ceremony. The collegiate basketball title went to St. Mary's last year. As mentioned, they were runners-up for the Intercollegiate Hockey Championship, losing to the Toronto Varsity Blues. And a final score of 14-6 here at CNE Stadium this afternoon gives St. Mary's the intercollegiate title. 1 touchdown by Santucci, and 8 points as a result of the kicking prowess in the first half of Ken Clark. And now for the presentation ceremonies, let's go down to field level, and from CBLFT TV here in Toronto, Winston McQuaid.
To make the official presentation to the captain of the winning team
the St. Mary Huskies. Son Excellence, le très honorable Roland C. Michener, gouverneur général du Canada, présentera maintenant au capitaine de l'équipe gagnante, les Huskies de St. Mary's, la Coupe Vanier. The Vanier Cup being symbolic of the best collegiate team in Canada. La Coupe Vanier, emblème de suprématie au football canadien, au football universitaire.
Canadian champions. There you are.
Now we would like to call upon Mr. Keith Harris, who's president of the CIAU. Nous demanderons maintenant à Monsieur Keith Harris, président de la CIAU, Alors rappelons que le gouverneur général, M. Michener, tient la coupe Vanier par-dessus sa tête. It's now the Vanier Cup that you're seeing, that the captains of the Huskies are holding.
I'm sure that many people in that presentation ceremony may have noticed the leader of the Conservative Party from the Maritimes, Bob Stanfield. The game is over. The score, St. Mary's 14 and McGill 6, and we'll return to CNE Stadium in just a moment.
Mr. Harris.
What does your Pontiac do at night when you've parked in your driveway? Well, it waits. With plush Pontiac luxury, deep full foam seats, beautiful fabrics, waiting with its sure wide track stance. Full-size comfort and room. Waiting for you to make it come alive again. The 1974 Pontiacs. The wide-track people have a way with cars.
Well, what are we going to fill to the Grey Cup?
The Teddy Morris Trophy has been presented to Ken Clark, the outstanding punter and placement kicker for St. Mary's. You see Clark holding the trophy and chatting with Mr. Michener.
Don, I thought St. Mary's certainly deserved to win this football game because they had an advantage in two big areas, and of course in weather conditions once again, the turnover area, which they were lucky enough to stop, or fortunate enough, successful enough to stop McGill at one point, and also of course the kicking game, which Bob Clark, obviously one of the reasons that he won the award, and certainly I think deservedly so. After all, he had the only points in the first half, and I think St. Mary's, although McGill was successful in running with the football, they didn't have a balanced attack on the day's activities.
Well, some of the individual statistics as far as St. Mary's is concerned, Santucci, their leading ball carrier, with 18 carries for 80 yards, and he scored their only touchdown. And I'm sure that in the dressing room after the game, there are going to be a lot of reporters firing questions at Charlie Bailey about that 3rd and 3 gamble when they were trailing only by 8-6 from about the 15-yard line. Offensively, 176 yards for St. Mary's, 179 for McGill. Rushing, 203 for McGill. However, they had some passing losses. And for St. Mary's, 47 yards through the air. Completions, 3 of 12 for St. Mary's, 2 of 10 for McGill. as Otters had some difficulty in throwing the ball. 2 turnovers by St. Mary's and 3 by McGill. A final score of St. Mary's 14 and McGill 6, and St. Mary's the 1973 Canadian Intercollegiate Football Champions. Several members of the McGill Redmen still down at field level. Margulies, number 60, and number 21, Bonenberg. And of course, for many of these players, this game caps a collegiate career, and I'm sure some of them will be drafted by professional teams and will be looking towards a pro career next year.
Well, Don, we had quite a list of collegiate graduates from the several leagues that are involved in the chase for the championship here who have gone on to CFL success. It's far too much to go over at this point, but we'd like to congratulate St. Mary's. We thought they played a great ball game, and we enjoyed the game even though the weather conditions were not the greatest.
So to Al Keith and the St. Mary's Huskies, congratulations on the 1973 championship. And now for Frank Rigney, Bob Moyer, Tom McKee, and our entire CBC crew, this is Don Whitman saying so long from
CBC Sports has presented the 1973 Canadian College Bowl for the Vanier Cup between the St. Mary's Huskies and the McGill Redmen. This college championship game has been brought to you by General Motors of Canada on behalf of Chevrolet, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, and Buick dealers from coast to coast, whose cars and trucks bear the GM mark of excellence. IAC, we put money in action. And the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and its affiliated stations from coast to coast. Tomorrow, Sunday, November 25th, CBC Television Sports brings you Preview at 12 noon. And
this is the CBC Television Network.